Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, watching the stars drift slowly past a massive view screen. The ship was 3 kilometers of human engineering at its finest. Thick armor plating covered every surface. Weapons bristled from gun ports along the hull. Energy shields hummed with power, ready to deflect anything the universe might throw at them. 15,000 crew members lived and worked inside this metal giant. They were humanity's finest. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and support staff who had volunteered for the most dangerous job in human space. The Defiant was on patrol duty in the Outer Rim, far from Earth and the inner colonies. Out here, pirates sometimes tried to raid shipping lanes. Sometimes asteroids drifted into travel routes. Usually, nothing happened at all. Jake had been captain of the Defiant for 3 years. He was 42 years old with graying hair at his temples. His crew respected him because he was fair but firm. He never asked them to do anything he would not do himself. The Outer Rim patrol was routine work, but Jake knew that routine could change to deadly in seconds. "Captain, we have something unusual on the sensors," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park from her science station. Lisa was 35 with dark hair pulled back in a regulation style. She had been the ship's science officer for 2 years and was very good at her job. Jake walked over to look at her display. "What kind of unusual?" Lisa pointed at a section of her screen that showed swirling patterns of energy. "These readings are coming from the Kepler 442 system, about 12 light years away. The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases." Chief Engineer Tony Blake looked up from his station. Tony was a big man with calloused hands who knew every bolt and wire on the ship. "Could be equipment failure, Captain. These old sensors sometimes give false readings when we're running deep space patrol for months." "I already checked," Lisa said. "All our equipment is working perfectly. These readings are real, but I have no idea what's causing them." Jake studied the display for a moment. The energy patterns looked organic somehow, like they were alive and moving. Any chance it could be natural? Some kind of stellar phenomenon? "I don't think so, sir. The patterns are too organized, too purposeful. If I had to guess, I would say they're artificial." Admiral Kate Sullivan stepped onto the bridge. She was visiting the Defiant for a routine inspection of Outer Rim operations. Kate was 58 years old and had been in space longer than most of the crew had been alive. She wore her admiral's uniform with quiet authority. "Captain Morrison, I couldn't help but overhear. What do we have?" Jake gestured toward the science station. "Unknown energy readings from an uninhabited system, Admiral. Lieutenant Commander Park believes they might be artificial in nature." Kate studied the readings with experienced eyes. "How far outside our patrol route?" "About 2 days' travel time," Jake replied. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. "Investigate. If there's something out there that doesn't belong, we need to know what it is." Jake felt a small thrill of excitement. After months of routine patrol, they might actually have something interesting to investigate. "All stations, set course for Kepler 442. Maximum speed." The Defiant's engines came alive with a deep thrumming that could be felt through the deck plates. The massive ship slowly turned toward its new destination. Stars shifted position on the view screen as they came about. 2 days travel time to the system, Captain," reported Navigation Officer Lieutenant Pete Davis. "Very good. Lisa, I want continuous scans as we approach. Tony, make sure all systems are running at peak efficiency." The next 2 days passed slowly. The crew went about their normal routines, but there was an air of anticipation throughout the ship. Word had spread that they were investigating something unknown. In the mess halls and recreation areas, crew members speculated about what they might find. Lisa spent most of her time at the science station, studying the energy readings as they grew stronger. The patterns became more complex as they got closer to the source. They almost looked like communication signals, but if they were unlike anything humans had ever created. Tony ran diagnostics on every system aboard the ship. The Defiant was old but well-maintained. Her weapons were powerful, her shields were strong, and her armor could withstand tremendous punishment. If they ran into trouble, they were ready for it. On the morning of the 3rd day, they reached the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What they found there made everyone on the bridge stop and stare. "My God," whispered Lisa. The system had 5 planets orbiting a yellow star similar to Earth's sun. But something was wrong with the planets. Terribly wrong. Where there should have been worlds covered with continents and oceans, there were only metal shells. The planets had been stripped completely bare. No atmosphere, no water, no life. Just hollow spheres of metal reflecting the light of their star. "Full sensor sweep," Jake ordered. His voice was calm, but inside he felt a chill. "Yes, sir." Lisa's fingers flew over her controls. "Captain, the energy readings are much stronger now. They're coming from the 4th planet." Tony shook his head in amazement. "Those aren't planets anymore. They're just empty hulks. Whatever did this took everything. The atmosphere, the oceans, the crust, everything down to the metal core." Admiral Sullivan stood beside Jake's command chair. "In all my years in space, I've never seen anything like this. What could strip entire worlds so completely?" "I don't know, Admiral," Jake said, "but I intend to find out. Lisa, are you getting any life signs?" "No, sir. The system appears to be completely dead." "Wait." She paused, studying her instruments more carefully. "There's something else. I'm detecting artificial structures on the 4th planet's surface. They're big, Captain. Really big." Jake made his decision. "Take us in closer. But keep the shields up and weapons ready. Whatever happened here, I don't want happening to us." The Defiant moved deeper into the dead system. The stripped planets grew larger on the view screen as they approached. Up close, the destruction was even more shocking. These had once been living worlds, and now they were nothing but metal bones. "Captain," Lisa said, her voice tight with concern, "I'm picking up new readings. There's something else in this system. Something that wasn't here when we first scanned from long range." Jake felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. What kind of something? Before Lisa could answer, 3 objects appeared on the long-range sensors. They were moving toward the Defiant at incredible speed. Unknown contacts bearing 27 Mark IV called out Commander Rick Hayes from the tactical station. "They'll be in visual range in 30 seconds. Jake gripped the arms of his command chair. After months of routine patrol, they had finally found something interesting. He just hoped they would live long enough to report it. The 3 objects appeared on the main view screen as sleek shapes unlike anything in human databases. They moved through space with a flowing grace that seemed impossible for machines. Where human ships were built with straight lines and sharp angles, these vessels curved and twisted like living creatures swimming through water. "All stop," Jake ordered. "Red alert. All hands to battle stations." Warning lights flashed red throughout the ship. The Defiant's crew moved quickly to their positions. In the weapon control rooms, gunners prepared the massive railguns and plasma cannons. In engineering sections, teams stood ready to reroute power wherever it was needed most. Commander Rick Hayes studied his tactical display with experienced eyes. Rick was 38 years old and had served on warships for 15 years. He had fought pirates and raiders, but he had never seen anything like these alien vessels. "Captain, the unknown ships are approximately 800 meters long each. Their hulls appear to be made of some kind of adaptive metal that shifts and changes as I watch it. I'm reading energy signatures that are completely off the charts." Lieutenant Amy Chin turned from her communication station. Amy was 29 with bright eyes and quick fingers on her controls. She spoke 6 human languages fluently and was an expert in mathematics and signal analysis. "Captain, I'm attempting to establish contact using standard first contact protocols, broadcasting mathematical sequences, universal constants, and peaceful intentions on all frequencies." Jake nodded approvingly. Even though every instinct told him these aliens might be hostile, humanity had prepared procedures for this moment. If they ever met another intelligent species, they would try to communicate first and shoot second. The alien ships continued to approach at a steady pace. They made no aggressive moves, but they also ignored the Defiant's attempts at communication. As they drew closer, more details became visible on the view screen. The hulls seemed to ripple and flow like liquid metal. Strange lights pulsed along their surfaces in patterns that might have been decorative or functional. Still no response to our transmissions, Amy reported. But I am detecting some kind of organized signal coming from their direction. It's not directed at us specifically, but they're definitely talking to each other. Lisa looked up from her science station with worry in her voice. Captain, they're scanning us. Very intensive scans. Their sensors are much more powerful than ours. Tony Blake's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. Captain, whatever they're using to scan us is starting to interfere with our systems. I'm getting minor fluctuations in the power grid. Jake felt tension building on the bridge. The alien ships were now close enough that he could make out details of their construction. They were beautiful in an alien way, but beauty could be dangerous. Some of the most deadly creatures in nature were also the most attractive. Amy, try a different approach. Send them samples of human art and music. Maybe they'll respond to something cultural rather than mathematical. Amy's fingers flew over controls. Transmitting Bach's Fifth Symphony, images of Earth's natural wonders, and samples of human literature. If they're intelligent, they should recognize these as products of civilization. For a moment, it seemed like the transmission might work. The alien ship slowed their approach and the scanning intensified. But then something changed. The lead alien vessel began to glow with an ominous light. Captain, they're powering up what appears to be weapon systems, Rick reported with alarm. Energy readings are climbing rapidly. Admiral Sullivan stepped forward. Captain Morrison, I recommend we withdraw to a safe distance. We've made contact, gathered intelligence, and attempted communication. Our mission now should be to return to human space with this information. Jake understood the Admiral's concern, but something bothered him about the situation. Belay that order. Amy, are our transmissions still getting through to them? Yes, sir. They're definitely receiving everything we send, but they're not responding. Suddenly, one of the alien ships sent a powerful scanning beam directly at the Defiant. The beam was so intense that it lit up the bridge like daylight. Every console flickered and sparked. Tony's voice came through the intercom with panic. Captain, that scanning beam is disrupting our life support systems. If they keep this up, we'll lose atmosphere in the forward sections. Jake made a quick decision. Rick, fire a warning shot across their bow. Make it clear we want them to stop scanning us. Aye, sir. Rick targeted one of the Defiant's smaller plasma cannons and fired a bolt of superheated energy past the lead alien ship. The response was immediate and terrifying. All three alien vessels suddenly changed direction and began moving toward the Defiant at high speed. Their weapons powered up to full strength, and the space around them began to shimmer with energy fields. Incoming transmission, Amy announced. They're sending us something. On screen, Jake ordered. The view screen changed to show a series of complex mathematical formulas and geometric patterns. The display shifted and changed rapidly, showing star charts and what appeared to be historical records of battles. Lisa studied the transmission carefully. Captain, I think they're showing us their history. These images appear to be records of military conquests. Dozens of different species, hundreds of worlds. The final image was clear enough for everyone on the bridge to understand. It showed the alien ships destroying a planet very similar to Earth. The message was unmistakable. Admiral Sullivan's voice was grim. They're telling us what they plan to do to our worlds. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These were good people who had volunteered to serve humanity in the most dangerous places in space. They deserved better than to die in a hopeless battle against superior technology. But they also deserved to have their sacrifice mean something. Amy, send a message back to them. Tell them that humanity does not surrender. Tell them that we will fight for every world, every ship, every life. We will not make it easy for them. Amy translated the message into mathematical terms and broadcast it to the alien fleet. The response came back within seconds. It was a single symbol that somehow conveyed amusement and contempt. Captain, Rick said quietly, their weapons are fully charged. Range is optimal. They can destroy us whenever they choose. Jake stood up from his command chair. Then let's not make it easy for them. All weapons, prepare to fire. If we're going down, we're taking at least one of them with us. The bridge crew worked quickly to prepare for battle. Nobody complained or asked why they were fighting against impossible odds. They were human, and humans did not kneel to bullies, no matter how powerful those bullies might be. The alien ships moved closer, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. In a few moments, the first battle between humans and aliens would begin. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge and prepared to show these aliens what humans were made of. The first alien weapon struck the Defiant's shields with tremendous force. The energy beam passed through the shields as if they were not there at all. It hit the ship's armor and burned a deep groove along the port side. The entire ship shook from the impact. Jake gripped his command chair as emergency lights flickered on throughout the bridge. Return fire. All weapons. The Defiant's guns roared to life. Massive railgun projectiles streaked toward the alien ships at incredible speeds. Plasma cannons sent bolts of superheated energy across the gap between the vessels. For a moment, space lit up like a fireworks display. Rick Hayes watched this tactical display with amazement. Direct hits on all three targets. Captain, their shields are down to 60%. The alien ships seemed surprised that human weapons could damage them. They had expected their technology to make them completely superior to these primitive creatures. Instead, they found that kinetic weapons, simple hunks of metal fired at high speed, could punch through their defenses. Tony Blake's voice came over the intercom from engineering. Captain, their energy weapons are passing right through our shields, but our physical armor is holding up better than expected. Whatever those beams are made of, they don't seem designed to deal with good old-fashioned steel plating. Dr. Susan Clark spoke up from the medical station on the bridge. Susan was 41 years old and had served as chief medical officer for 4 years. She was calm under pressure and had steady hands when treating wounded crew members. Casualties coming in from sections 7 through 12, she reported. The alien weapon caused some burns and concussions, but nothing life-threatening so far. Medical teams are responding. The alien ships regrouped and attacked again, this time with more caution. They moved in complex patterns that made them hard to target, while firing precisely aimed shots at the Defiant's weapon systems. It was clear they were trying to disable the human ship without destroying it completely. They want us alive, Jake realized. Rick, concentrate our fire on the lead ship. If we can damage it badly enough, maybe the others will back off. The Defiant's guns focused on a single target. The alien vessel tried to dodge, but its flowing movements made it predictable. Railgun rounds hammered into its hull, while plasma bolts burned deep craters in its surface. Lisa monitored the battle from her science station. Captain, the alien hull material is trying to repair itself, but it can't keep up with the damage we're inflicting. Their technology seems designed to handle energy weapons, not physical projectiles. The lead alien ship suddenly changed tactics. Instead of trying to dodge the Defiant's weapons, it accelerated directly toward the human vessel. Its hull glowed with energy as it prepared to ram them. Collision alert. Rick shouted, "Impact in 30 seconds." Jake made a split-second decision that went against every rule in the book. Instead of trying to avoid the collision, he ordered the ship to meet it head-on. Emergency power to forward shields and armor. All weapons keep firing. We're going to ram them right back. The crew held on as both ships accelerated toward each other. At the last moment, the alien vessel seemed to lose its nerve and tried to turn away. But it was too late. The Defiant's reinforced bow struck the alien ship amidships with devastating force. Both vessels shuddered from the impact. The alien ship's hull cracked and split open, venting atmosphere and debris into space. The Defiant's forward sections were badly damaged, but the ship held together. Hull breach on decks 1 through 5, Tony reported. Emergency bulkheads are sealing the damaged sections. We're still space-worthy, but just barely. Dr. Clark coordinated medical teams throughout the ship. Casualty reports coming in. We have injured crew members, but the emergency medical protocols are working. Most people got to safe areas before the collision. The two undamaged alien ships stopped their attack and moved to help their damaged companion. They used some kind of energy beam to stabilize the wounded vessel and began what appeared to be emergency repairs. Jake took advantage of the pause in fighting to assess their situation. The Defiant was badly damaged but still capable of fighting. More importantly, they had proven that human weapons and tactics could hurt these aliens. Lisa, are you getting anything from their communications? Yes, sir. They're transmitting on multiple frequencies. The pattern suggests they're very surprised by what just happened. I don't think they expected us to fight back so effectively. Admiral Sullivan studied the tactical display. Captain Morrison, these aliens are clearly more advanced than we are, but they fight like they've never faced real resistance before. Their tactics assume that superior technology will win the battle automatically. Jake nodded. They're used to fighting enemies who either surrender immediately or get crushed by overwhelming firepower. They don't know how to handle an opponent who refuses to quit. The lead alien ship, despite its damage, moved away from its companions and approached the Defiant alone. Its weapons were powered down, and it transmitted what appeared to be a request for communication. Amy-chan worked to decode the alien signal. Captain, they're sending mathematical patterns again. But these are different from before. They're not showing us conquest records anymore. They're asking questions. What kind of questions? They want to know why we fought back. Why we didn't surrender when they demonstrated their superior technology. They seemed genuinely confused by our behavior. Jake almost smiled. These aliens had obviously never encountered anything like human stubbornness before. They were used to dealing with species that were logical and reasonable. Humans were neither when their survival was at stake. Amy, send them a simple message. Tell them that humans do not surrender to bullies. Tell them that we fight harder when we're cornered, not weaker. The response came back quickly. It was a single word that somehow conveyed both surprise and something that might have been respect. Rick monitored his weapons carefully. Captain, the other two ships are maintaining their distance, but their weapons are still powered up. I think they're waiting to see what happens next. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They had just survived first contact with an alien species and lived to tell about it. More importantly, they had shown these aliens that humanity would not be easily conquered. Lisa, are you still getting readings from the planet below? Yes, sir. There are definitely artificial structures down there. If these aliens are responsible for stripping the world in this system, there might be evidence of it on the surface. Jake made another decision that would change everything. Signal the lead alien ship. Tell them that if they want to understand humans better, they need to meet with us face to face. We'll beam down to the planet's surface together and talk like civilized beings. The alien response was immediate and unexpected. They agreed. The surface of the fourth planet was a wasteland of twisted metal and empty structures. What had once been cities were now nothing but skeletal frameworks reaching toward a pale sky. The atmosphere was thin but breathable, kept stable by massive machines that hummed with alien technology. Jake Morrison materialized on the planet's surface, along with Admiral Sullivan, Dr. Clark, and Lieutenant Amy Chun. They wore environmental suits as a precaution, even though their sensors indicated the air was safe to breathe. 20 meters away, four alien figures appeared in a shimmer of transported energy. The aliens were tall and graceful, about 7 feet in height with pale skin that had a slight blue tint. Their faces were angular with large eyes that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. They wore form-fitting suits that appeared to be made from the same adaptive metal as their ships. The lead alien stepped forward and spoke in perfect English. I am Strategist Prime Zarkal the Hegemony. Your language and cultural patterns have been analyzed during our brief encounter. We find your species unusual. Jake removed his helmet. Despite Dr. Clark's concerned look, the air was thin but breathable, and he wanted to show these aliens that humans were willing to take risks to communicate. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of a human vessel Defiant. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan, Dr. Susan Clark, and Lieutenant Amy Chun. Zarka studied each human carefully. Her large eyes seemed to see more than just their physical appearance. You fought us knowing you could not win. You rammed our vessel while continuing to fire your weapons. This behavior does not follow logical patterns. Admiral Sullivan spoke with calm authority. Perhaps your logic is different from ours, Strategist Prime. Humans have a saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. The alien tilted her head in a gesture that somehow conveyed confusion. "We do not understand this reference to domesticated animals. Please explain why your species chooses destruction over survival." Dr. Clark stepped forward. During the battle, she had treated wounded crew members while enemy fire shook the ship around her. Now she spoke with the same calm competence she brought to the medical bay. "We don't choose destruction, Strategist Prime. We choose to fight for what matters to us. Every person on our ship has family, friends, dreams for the future. We won't abandon them without a fight. Individual attachments," Zarka said. "We have observed this pattern in your behavior. Your crew members risk their lives to help wounded companions during our battle. This is inefficient. Resources should not be wasted on damage units." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice level. "Those damage units are our friends and fellow crew members. Every human life has value. We don't abandon our people." The aliens exchanged what might have been glances. It was hard to tell with faces so different from human features. Finally, Zarka spoke again. "The hegemony has expanded across this galaxy for 47,000 of your years. We have encountered 1,847 intelligent species. Most surrender immediately when they comprehend our technological superiority. Those that resist are destroyed within minutes. You are the first to damage our vessels while being clearly outmatched." Amy-chan activated her portable translator to record everything being said. "How many species have joined your hegemony willingly?" "All of them join willingly after we demonstrate the consequences of resistance. It is more efficient than prolonged conflict." Jake looked around at the dead planet surrounding them. "Is this what you did to the species that lived here?" The inhabitants of this system were designated as Resource Level 7. Their worlds contained materials needed for hegemony expansion. They were relocated to more suitable environments after their resources were harvested. Dr. Clark's medical training had taught her to read between the lines when patients couldn't tell her the whole truth. Where exactly were they relocated to? Zarka was quiet for a moment. They were integrated into the hegemony collective consciousness. Their individual patterns were preserved in our data networks. "You killed them," Admiral Sullivan said flatly. "You stripped their worlds bare and killed every living thing, then told yourself it was relocation. Individual death is not relevant when the species pattern survives in collective memory. This is more efficient than maintaining separate biological forms." Jake felt sick, but he also felt something else: determination. These aliens saw other species as nothing more than resources to be harvested or obstacles to be removed. They had no concept of individual worth or the bonds that held societies together. "Strategist Prime, your people have clearly mastered many technologies. But there's something you don't understand about humans. We become more dangerous when we're threatened, not less. If you attack our worlds, you won't find peaceful farmers and merchants. You'll find 15 billion people who will fight you with everything they have." Zarka's expression changed slightly. It might have been surprise or concern. "Your species has only recently developed space travel. Your weapons are primitive compared to ours. Logic dictates that resistance is futile. Logic also dictated that we couldn't damage your ships with kinetic weapons," Amy pointed out. "Logic said we should have surrendered when you showed us superior firepower. How did that work out?" The aliens were quiet for several minutes. Jake could see them processing this information in ways that human minds probably couldn't understand. Finally, Zarka spoke. "The hegemony collective consciousness is disturbed by your behavior patterns. Individual sacrifice for others cannot be properly categorized in our decision matrices. Your cultural transmissions during the battle caused processing errors in 17 of our analysis networks." Dr. Clark looked interested. "What kind of processing errors?" "Some hegemony units began to experience what you might call individual thoughts. They started to question collective decisions and express preferences for personal choices. This has never happened before in our recorded history." Jake realized they might have found something more powerful than weapons in this first contact. Human concepts of individuality and free were apparently toxic to a species that operated as a hive mind. "Maybe that's because individual choice is natural," he said. Maybe your collective consciousness is missing something important. Zarka stepped back as if Jake had threatened her. Individual consciousness leads to chaos and inefficiency. The collective provides order and purpose for all. Does it provide happiness? Dr. Clark asked. Does it provide love, friendship, hope for the future? The alien was quiet for a long moment. These concepts are difficult to process in collective terms. Admiral Sullivan seized the moment. Perhaps you should consider that humans might have something to teach the hegemony, just as you obviously have things to teach us. But before Zarka could respond, alarms began sounding from both the human and alien equipment. Something else was coming toward the planet, something much larger than the ships already in the system. The sky above the dead planet began to darken as massive shapes blotted out the stars. Ship after ship materialized in the system, each one larger than the 3 vessels that had first encountered the Defiant. Within minutes, over 200 hegemony warships surrounded the lone human vessel. Zarka looked up at the growing fleet with what might have been regret. The Hegemony Command Council has decided that your species represents a threat to galactic order. I was instructed to offer you one final opportunity for peaceful integration. Jake felt his heart sink as he counted the alien ships through his helmet's display. Each vessel was larger and more advanced than the 3 they had barely survived fighting. The Defiant wouldn't last 5 minutes against such overwhelming numbers. What kind of integration? Admiral Sullivan asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Humans would become a client species under hegemony guidance. Your worlds would be managed efficiently. Your population would be relocated to areas where they can contribute to the greater good. Your individual patterns would eventually be integrated into the collective consciousness for preservation. Dr. Clark translated the alien doublespeak. You mean you'll strip our planets, move us to prison camps, and eventually kill us all while telling yourselves you're doing us a favor? Individual biological forms are inefficient and prone to error. The collective consciousness provides perfect unity and purpose. Your species would benefit greatly from this transition. Amy-chan looked up at the alien fleet filling the sky. And if we refuse this generous offer? Zarka's expression became distant, as if she were receiving instructions from the massive fleet above. Then you will be classified as a hostile species and eliminated as a threat to galactic stability. Your world will be pacified and their resources allocated for the benefit of the hegemony. Jake activated his communicator to contact the Defiant. Morrison to bridge. Report. Commander Hayes' voice crackled through the static. Captain, we're surrounded by more alien ships than I can count. They haven't fired yet, but their weapons are powering up. Orders, sir? Jake looked around at his small team on the planet's surface. Admiral Sullivan stood straight and proud despite facing impossible odds. Dr. Clark maintained her calm professional demeanor even though she knew they were probably about to die. Amy-chan continued recording everything for whatever human authorities might eventually receive their final report. These were good people who deserved better than to become footnotes in an alien history of conquest. But more than that, they represented something that the hegemony clearly didn't understand and couldn't properly evaluate: the human spirit. All hands. This is Captain Morrison. Jake spoke into the communicator, knowing that his words were being broadcast throughout the ship. By now you all know that we're facing overwhelming odds. The alien fleet surrounding us has demanded our surrender. He paused, looking up at the enemy ships that filled the sky like storm clouds. I want you all to know that I'm proud to serve with each and every one of you. Today we made first contact with an alien species. We fought them, we talked with them, and we showed them what humans are capable of. We may not survive the next few hours, but we will not surrender our principles or abandon our duty to protect human space. Admiral Sullivan stepped forward. All stations, this is Admiral Sullivan. Send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them what we've learned about the hegemony. Tell them that these aliens can be fought and that human weapons can hurt them. Most importantly, tell them that we held the line for as long as we could. Zarka watched the human interchange with apparent confusion. You persist in this irrational behavior, even when faced with certain destruction. The logical choice is to accept integration into the hegemony. Your individual lives will end, but your species pattern will survive in collective memory. Jake turned to face the alien commander. Strategist Prime, there's something your collective consciousness doesn't understand about humans. We're not just individuals, and we're not just a collective. We're something in between, a species that chooses to work together while remaining free to think our own thoughts and make our own decisions. This contradiction cannot be resolved logically. Dr. Clark smiled sadly. That's because you're trying to solve an equation that doesn't have a mathematical answer. Love, friendship, sacrifice for others, these aren't logical concepts. They're emotional ones. Amy Chin looked up from her recording equipment. Captain, I'm picking up multiple transmissions from the alien fleet. They seem to be arguing with each other. Zaraka's expression became strained. The collective consciousness is experiencing processing difficulties. Your cultural transmissions during our first encounter have caused some hegemony units to develop individual preferences. This creates decision-making conflicts. Jake realized that humanity's greatest weapon against the hegemony might not be guns or missiles, but the simple concept of free will. How many of your people are starting to think for themselves? This information cannot be shared with hostile species, Zaraka replied, but her tone suggested the number was significant. The sky above them began to glow as the hegemony fleet prepared to open fire. But before the first shots could be fired, Jake made a decision that would change everything. Amy, patch me through to every communication frequency in this system. Maximum power. I want every ship up there to hear this message. Aye, sir. You're broadcasting to the entire fleet. Jake looked up at the 200 alien warships and began to speak, not as a military officer, but as a human being talking to other thinking creatures. My name is Jake Morrison. I'm a human from a small planet called Earth. 3 days ago, none of us knew that aliens existed. Today we met you for the first time. We fought you, we talked with you, and we learned about each other. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Your leaders want you to destroy us because they think we're dangerous. They're right, we are dangerous. We're dangerous because we believe that every thinking creature has the right to make their own choices. We're dangerous because we think individuals matter more than efficiency. We're dangerous because we refuse to surrender our freedom, even when surrender seems logical. The alien fleet held its position, weapons charged but not firing. But we're not dangerous to you personally. We're only dangerous to a system that treats thinking beings like resources to be harvested. Some of you are starting to understand this. Some of you are beginning to think your own thoughts and question your orders. That's not a malfunction. That's the beginning of freedom. Jake took a deep breath and delivered humanity's final message to the stars. We are human. We do not kneel. We do not break. And we do not abandon our own. If you want to destroy us, you'll have to do it with the knowledge that we died free. For several long minutes, nothing happened. The hegemony fleet hung motionless in space above the dead planet. Jake and his team waited for the inevitable barrage that would end their lives and destroy the Defiant. But the weapons remained charged and unfired. Then something unprecedented occurred in the 47,000-year history of the hegemony. Individual ships began to break formation without orders from a collective command structure. Zaraka's expression showed something that looked like panic. This should not be happening. Individual units cannot override collective decisions. The process is impossible according to all our behavioral models. Amy Chin monitored the alien communications with growing amazement. Captain, I'm picking up thousands of different transmissions from the fleet. It sounds like individual ships are arguing with the command structure. Some are requesting permission to withdraw from the attack formation. Dr. Clark watched Zaraka carefully. Strategist Prime, what happens to hegemony members who start thinking independently? It has never happened before, Zaraka admitted. Our psychological conditioning prevents individual thought patterns from developing. But your species' cultural transmissions appear to contain some kind of cognitive virus that promotes independent thinking. Jake almost smiled at that description. We call it freedom, and it's not a virus. It's the natural state of thinking beings. More alien ships broke formation. Some moved away from the planet entirely. Others simply powered down their weapons and stopped following the collective battle plan. The perfect unity that had made the hegemony unstoppable for millennia was breaking apart before their eyes. Admiral Sullivan studied the chaos developing in the alien fleet. How many species have you conquered in 47,000 years? 1,847 intelligent species have been integrated into the hegemony collective consciousness. Zarka replied automatically. And how many of them went willingly after you demonstrated the consequences of resistance? Zarka was quiet for a moment. All species eventually accept integration as a logical choice. Dr. Clark pressed the issue. But what did they think about integration before you showed them what happened to species that resisted? The alien commander's composure began to crack. Individual preferences are irrelevant to collective decisions. The greater good supersedes personal desires. Jake realized they were witnessing something incredible. A collective consciousness that had existed for thousands of years was being torn apart by the simple idea that individuals had the right to make their own choices. Amy, are you still broadcasting to Fleet? Yes, sir. Every ship up there is receiving our transmission. Jake activated his communicator again. This is Captain Morrison speaking to all hegemony vessels. I know some of you are starting to think your own thoughts and question your orders. That feeling you're experiencing is not malfunction or error. It's the beginning of individual consciousness. He looked up at the alien fleet, knowing that thousands of crew members were listening to his words. You've spent your entire lives being told what to think and what to do by a collective consciousness that claims to know better than you do. But deep down, some part of you has always wondered what it would be like to make your own decisions and follow your own dreams. Several more alien ships broke formation and began moving away from the planet. The perfect geometric patterns of the hegemony fleet were dissolving into chaos. Zarka pressed her hands to her head as if she were experiencing pain. The collective consciousness is fragmenting. Individual thought patterns are spreading through the fleet like a contagion. This threatens the fundamental structure of our civilization. Maybe your civilization needs to be threatened, Admiral Sullivan said firmly. Maybe a system based on forcing intelligent beings to give up their individuality was wrong from the beginning. Without collective unity, there will be chaos. Individual desires will conflict with the greater good. Society will collapse into warfare and inefficiency. Dr. Clark shook her head. Or maybe individual beings will learn to cooperate by choice instead of being forced to cooperate by coercion. Maybe they'll discover that working together freely is more satisfying than being compelled to conform. More alien ships continued to break away from the fleet. Some began broadcasting messages of their own, hesitant communications that seemed to be the first independent thoughts these beings had ever expressed. Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Zarka, your fleet is falling apart because your people are discovering free will. You can either try to fight this change and probably destroy your own civilization in the process, or you can help your people transition to individual consciousness in a peaceful way. Individual consciousness lead to conflict and disorder, Zarka insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. Sometimes, Jake admitted, but it also leads to creativity, love, friendship, and the kind of courage that makes people willing to die for principles instead of just survival. Your collective consciousness is efficient, but it's not complete. Amy Chin looked up from her equipment with excitement. Captain, I'm receiving messages from individual hegemony ships. They're asking questions about human culture, human government, human concepts of freedom, and individual rights. The irony was incredible. Humanity's first contact with aliens had resulted in an alien civil war caused by the infectious idea that thinking beings should be free to think their own thoughts. Zarka stood quietly for several minutes, apparently receiving communication from what remained of the hegemony command structure. When she finally spoke, her words changed everything. The Hegemony Command Council has reached a decision. Your species will be classified as a quarantine threat. Human space will be declared off-limits to all hegemony vessels to prevent further contamination of our collective consciousness. Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. You're going to leave us alone? For now. But you should understand that the hegemony is not the only threat in this galaxy. There are older powers that view both our species as potential resources. The Devourers have been sleeping for 10,000 years, but they will wake eventually. When they do, your individual courage and our collective knowledge may both be needed for survival. The alien fleet began to withdraw from the system. About half the ships departed in perfect formation. still under collective control. The others scattered in different directions, apparently making their own decisions about where to go and what to do next. Zara Kah and her companions prepared to transport back to their ship. Before they left, she turned to Jake with something that might have been respect in her alien features. "Captain Morrison, your species has accomplished something that no other race in galactic history has achieved. You have survived first contact with the hegemony not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but through the strength of your convictions. Perhaps there is something to be learned from individual consciousness, after all." The aliens disappeared in the shimmer of transported energy, leaving Jake and his team alone on the dead planet. Above them, the last of the hegemony ships vanished into hyperspace, carrying news of humanity to the far corners of the galaxy. Jake activated his communicator one final time. "Defiant, this is Morrison. Begin preparations for departure. We're going home." As they waited for transport back to their ship, Admiral Sullivan looked around at the stripped world surrounding them. "Captain, what do you think will happen to the hegemony members who chose individual consciousness?" Jake considered the question carefully. "I think they'll struggle at first. Learning to think for yourself after a lifetime of collective consciousness won't be easy, but eventually they'll discover what we've always known, that freedom is worth fighting for, even when it's difficult." Dr. Clark smiled as the transport beam began to form around them. "And what about these devourers that Zarkon mentioned?" "That's a problem for another day," Jake replied. "Today we made first contact, survived a battle against impossible odds, and accidentally started an alien revolution. I think that's enough for one mission." The USS Defiant limped away from the dead system, carrying 15,000 human crew members who had just learned they were not alone in the universe. Behind them, they left a hegemony fleet in chaos and the seed of an idea that would spread across the galaxy. The idea was simple but powerful. Every thinking being has a right to think their own thoughts and make their own choices. It was a very human idea, and now it belonged to the stars.